Catholics today claim an unbroken chain of theology all the way back to the beginning with Jesus Christ. Critics, however, are quick to point out that the Church actually didn't begin until 325 AD at the Council of Nicea. History, it would seem, however, says it was a little bit of both. Nicea is a council with a vast amount of conspiracy behind it. Some authors claim that it was here that the Christian religion was invented whole cloth by Constantine the Emperor. Dan Brown, in his novel The Da Vinci Code, claimed that the divinity of Christ was first proclaimed here by Constantine, and that it was voted on and only passed by a very close margin. Some people claim that Constantine ordered the canon of the Bible at the council, and that it was voted on by the bishops. It was a tradition, when I was a Catholic, that Constantine called the council to confirm his allegiance to the Catholic Church and to crush the vile heresy of Arianism. The pattern here is centralized around the Emperor Constantine, and to understand this council we must understand the man that called for it and presided at it. Constantine was born in 272 AD to a Roman army officer, Constantius. At the time, the Roman Empire was ruled by a tetrarch. There were two co-emperors, one in Milan and one in Nicodema. There were also two Caesars, the equivalent of our vice president, if you will. The two Caesars, Constantius and Galerius, ruled in Trevorum in Germany and Sirmium in what is now Serbia. This is the system that Constantine was born into, but in 305 AD, everything changed. His father, by then the reigning Augustus in the west, died in what is present-day York, England. Constantine was declared emperor by his troops, but three other rivals soon rose up: Galerius, Maximian, and Maxentius. The Roman Empire had already been rife with civil unrest and war, but this time, four emperors, with everything to gain and their lives on the line, squared off against each other. The chaos and carnage shook the empire. In 312, Constantine faced his brother-in-law, Maxentius, at the Milvian Bridge. There, Constantine is said to have seen the symbol of the Chi Rho, though other sources say it was more of an Ankh-like symbol. Constantine himself was a sun worshipper, worshipping the god Sol Invictus. So it is very possible that he saw what is commonly referred to as a dog's cross. As with any legend, the truth is difficult to find. What is known is that the Civil War had cost the Empire and Constantine dearly. He needed more troops, and he turned to a very unlikely source: the Christians. They had previously been persecuted as a treasonous religion. Now, this may not make a lot of sense to our modern sensibilities, but when you consider in the ancient world there was no separation of church and state, having a rival religion that was outlawed and belonging to it was tantamount to wanting to overthrow the government. These were the people that Constantine recruited. The story of the vision might have been entirely invented for their benefit, but if it was, it worked. He was victorious. That left only him and the Eastern Emperor on the throne. And by 324 AD, Constantine had conquered him as well and had crowned himself the sole emperor of the Roman Empire. The last 20 years had shaken the empire, and it was in desperate need of unity. Constantine looked to the Christians, to whom he owed a vast amount of his success to. He had favors to repay. He had repaid one by issuing the Edict of Milan with Maxentius in 313, granting legality to the Christian faith. They were no longer a treasonous religion. However, controversy in the rapidly growing religion threatened peace in the empire. It could not afford another civil war, much less a religious war. Constantine therefore called a council to resolve these conflicts. The fate of the empire rested on the ability of the warring factions within Christianity to agree on a standard set of doctrines. As an incentive, Constantine declared that anyone who failed to sign the agreement at the end of the council would be banished from the empire. If you were to be separate from the church, then you would be separate from the state as well. By the best estimates, between 250 and 300 bishops and their entourages of 2 priests and 2 deacons arrived in Nicea in the summer of 325 AD. The official presider of the council was Hosius of Cordoba, a close advisor to Constantine. And while Constantine did call the council and presided unofficially over it, he did not partake in the council, nor did he vote on any of the topics at hand. The topics up for debate were the Arian question on the divinity and essence of Jesus, the date to celebrate Easter, 3. The Meletian Schism, 4. Church discipline. This would eventually lead to 20 canons that would range from the ordination of deacons to why people must stand during the liturgy, women deacons no longer being allowed, and to the internal structure of the church hierarchy. The question that was on most people's mind was the Arian question, and the second was the date of the Paschal feast, Easter. Each episcopal see was possible of celebrating the Feast of the Resurrection on a completely different day due to imprecise calendars and vague scriptures. This was a topic of much contention, but not nearly as much as what would come to be called the Arian heresy. Arianism was taught by Arius, a pupil of Paul of Samosata, who taught that Jesus, while the Son of God, was distinct and subservient to God. It comes from a passage in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 28. You heard me say, I am going away, but I am coming back to you. If you loved me, you would be glad that I am going to the Father, for the Father is greater than I. This was actual scripture that Arius used to back up his teachings based upon the words of Jesus himself, while the Orthodox view had to rely on extra-biblical wording to state their beliefs. Constantine was unconcerned over the exact beliefs so long as peace and order were restored. In fact, it is a tradition that he was frustrated with the bishops quarreling over what seemed like the smallest of words. Indeed, the argument broke down over to a single Greek letter, iota, the difference between homoousia and homoiousia. The debate was said to have gotten so heated that even Bishop Nicholas of Myrna is said to have gotten into a fistfight with Arius. Yes, that's right. Saint Nicholas of Myrna, also known as Santa Claus. Santa Claus punched Arius in the face. He was a badass. While the exact minutes were either lost to history or were never recorded, invitees later on wrote of the proceedings and the decrees that were issued after all of the dust settled. By the end of the council, there was reached an agreement. Only 3 bishops refused to sign the Nicene Creed and were subsequently banished from the empire. Constantine then ordered that all of the writings of Arius were to be burned. And if anyone was to be found having one of those writings on their possession or in their home, the penalty was death. Constantine had his peace in the empire, though ironically, when on his deathbed, the priest that baptized him was an Arian heretic. The church had unity, for the moment, though the Arian heresy had forced them to adopt non-biblical teachings to support their position. This was a decision that would come back to haunt them. And of course, thank you for watching. However, controversy... What?
I didn't hear anything.
What?
Just process
I
that.
didn't say anything.
Christianity can come together, and I fucked that up again, to agree to a standard set of doctrines.
Do some shit.
Get some shit fucking done, son!
Whoop, whoop.
We're gonna do some doctrines and agree on some theological discussions! The council later on wrote down of the decrees, and fuck, that is just terrible.